Yeah. Okay. This is awesome. This is the first junior and senior Nothing But Sports podcast episode. Today we're going to discuss and predict everything college football before week 0 gets started next Saturday. We're going to look at the top 25 rankings and discuss that a little bit. And then we will pick our conference championship games for all the conferences, big ones and the small ones. And then we will go into Heisman predictions. And finally, we will get to the entire college football playoff scenarios and pick all the way until we get to the championship game. So, first thing we're going to do is look at the AP top 25 rankings, which came out Monday. We have Georgia at 1. We're going to do it in like groups of 4. Georgia's at 1, Ohio State's at 2, Oregon's at 3, and Texas is at 4. And if the playoffs just started right now, that's how we're going to look at these rankings to start out with. It would be Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, and Texas. Do you have a problem with those top 4 as they are right now going into the season? Do you have any problem with any of those 4 teams?
I have a huge problem with that whole setup. And it's only because my team is sitting at number 9 and 8 in 2 different polls, and they should clearly at least be in the top 5, let alone the top 4.
That's the thing, and we'll get to Michigan here in a second.
That's my issue. That's
yeah.
Really,
the
other teams is fine. All of that my team is just missing out of that list.
Right.
Because they just won the chip. Granted, they lost some players that they lost, but they didn't lose. They didn't Washington Husky lose players. Right. Clearly, they're not even in the top.
They lost an entire. I mean, they literally
lost an entire squad
from head coach all the way down to.
Yeah, they lost everything. So, I mean, we still got one of the top running backs in college football. We have the pieces necessary to at least be formidable. So where we should at least be respected. I just feel like and I have nothing to do with Georgia. I have no quarrels with Georgia being number 1. They're supposed to be. They got the best everything. Recruiting class, portal, this, that, coaching staff. Kirby Smart's the best. Now that this season is going to be the first Nick Saban-less season, Kirby Smart is right there behind him as the best head coach in college football. So I have no problems with Georgia. I have a lot of problems with an Ohio State team that we beat 3 seasons straight to even get to where we were in the playoffs. So they're number 2, but I get it. Oregon, I kind of, not 3, but I can easily put them at 4 or 5. Texas lost to that same Washington team, but I understand Texas is getting most people back. Washington lost everybody. Bama lost the best head coach in college football outside of Kirby Smart. I think number 4 is the only reason why they're even sitting at 5 when it should be at least where we're at, which is 8 or 9.
Okay.
That's my part.
Okay, we'll do the first 5 here, and then we'll do it by groups of 5. So we'll go from 1 to 5, then 6 to 10, and kind of do it that way.
All right. So
as far as number 1 goes, Georgia, they got 46 first place votes. I have no problem with Georgia. We respect them. For the last 3 years, I believe, they won 2 straight national championships. Last year, they did not get into the Final Four. And I don't care what Reese Davis says. Georgia, they didn't deserve to be in that top 4. Now, their argument is deserving versus best, or whatever the case. Everything should be taken into consideration. They had a chance to beat Alabama in the SEC championship game, and they couldn't do it. They cannot, for whatever reason, they cannot beat Alabama. I believe Kirby is 1-6 I believe, since he's been at Georgia against Alabama. And the only time they beat him was in the national championship a couple years ago. So for me, I don't want to hear nothing about that. They didn't earn it. Florida, we all know, we'll get to Florida State here in a little bit, but they got robbed. But as far as everything they have coming back, they have earned the respect and they've earned the right to be in a top 3, top 4, as Alabama was when Nick Saban was there. I don't have a huge problem with them being at 1. They've earned it for the last 3 years. They've been, honestly, the only team they've lost to is Alabama. No problem there. They have been steamrolling through. They've had some deficiencies here and there, but they've shown that they can rise to the top. But again, the thorn in their side has been Alabama. Since Kirby's been there, they have not been able to beat this man. He's not there anymore, but it's still Alabama, so we'll see how they handle it this year when they go to Tuscaloosa early on in the season. Number 2, Ohio State. Again, I hate Ohio State, but have to have integrity here. And a lot of people are saying they have one of the best rosters, if not the best roster in college football. It's hard for me to disagree with that, because when you look at the guys that they have accrued through the transfer portal and coming back, a lot of guys on that team, especially on the defense, decided, hey, we're going to come back. We want to win a national championship, of course, but we want to beat Michigan, because they have not, for the seniors, the juniors and seniors on this team, they're 0-3, 0-2 against Michigan. So they're on a mission to come back, beat these guys, and get to national championship. But when you look at their roster, just that receiver, you've got Emeka Egbuka coming back again. You got this Carnell Tate guy who was a freshman last year, who I saw some good things, and this freshman Jeremiah Smith coming, who I've heard I've been hearing a lot of good things about this guy. So if he's everything that the scouts and people are saying, this is going to be another stacked wide receiver group for Ohio State. I expect big things from them. Then they got Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss, which was a big signing for them, because Quinshon Judkins was a wrecking ball at Ole Miss. He looked very good last year against Georgia when they played him, even though they got ran over. He was very good in that game. So at the running back position, you got Travion Henderson and you got Quinshon Judkins. So they're going to be stacked at the running back position. And then you got Will Howard coming over from Kansas State, who was very good at Kansas State. And I think, a lot of people aren't really sure about him. But I honestly think, compared to the other quarterbacks they have who aren't proven at all, you got some freshmen on there and some transfers. But this is the guy. He has the most experience. He's going to be able to run a lot of RPO stuff that they really haven't done in a couple of years. CJ Stroud they didn't really implement that until that Georgia game a couple of years ago, where that was what really made me a fan of him in that game. So they're going to really be able to do a lot of RPO action in this game with Will Howard and Judkins. So again, just offensively, they got it, and even defensively, they are stacked as well. They have the total package. So the question is going to be, when it matters, can they make the plays to get it done? But they have the roster, no question. And this idea that their coach is somehow going to be under fire this year is ridiculous. There are a lot of Power 5 teams that would love to have Ryan Day as their coach. They lost to Michigan a year ago and still got to the playoff and was a kick away from being in the national championship. So, they haven't been able to beat Michigan in the last 3 years, and it's one of the biggest games of if not the biggest rivalry game in college football. So yes, you need to win that game. But other than Michigan, they have completely ran over everybody else. So
and you have to win your conference.
And yeah, you have to win your conference. But being as they were in the same division up until now, again, that was the game. But now it's a situation where there are no divisions. It's the two best teams get to the championship game. So we very well could be looking at a Michigan-Ohio State playing twice, possibly 3 times, which is something that I don't think a lot of people have been talking about. The fact that it's possible, much like in the NFL, where we could see some of these teams playing 3 times in a regular season, a conference championship, and a playoff game. It's possible, and I suspect we're going to see that in the coming years, where we're going to see some of these teams playing each other at least 3 times, 2 or 3 times. So, if you're Ryan Day, your goal obviously is to beat Michigan at the end of the year, but it's to make the playoff. If you can be one of those 12 teams in and out every year, again, I have no love for Ohio State, but I think the vitriol that's come this man's way is a little ridiculous. Obviously, you need to beat your rival, but I mean, they have been excellent otherwise and made the playoffs on 2 occasions. Made the national championship on 1 occasion. So, obviously, if he wins the national championship this year, which a lot of people think that they are, then it doesn't really, whether you beat Michigan or not, he'll be just fine. But he's one of the best coaches in college football. And contrary to popular belief, guys such as Paul Feinbaum don't quite understand what that means. So, and we're going to get on him a lot in this podcast because he doesn't. I get it. He's an SEC guy, but we got to stop. All right, number 3, Oregon. Again, Oregon's got Dylan Gabriel from Oklahoma. This guy is well traveled. He started off at UCF, made his way to Oklahoma, and now he's at Oregon. They got one of the best rosters in college football as well. Last year, you had Bo Nix. You lost to Washington twice. Other than that, they took care of business. They have an opportunity here. They're going to play Ohio State this year. And
which is going to say a lot about them by the end of the day, because if they lose that game, see, here's my thing. A lot of these teams are promising preseason. When it's time to actually get on the field, teams like Oregon and Ole Miss are the 2 that disappoint me every time. Ole Miss, just like Georgia can't beat Bama, Ole Miss can't beat Bama neither.
Right.
Oregon, as I see, a number 1 next to their team, which lets me to believe that they only got 1 vote to be at number 3, which blows my mind compared to the 46 and the 15 that's next to Georgia and Ohio State. Again, it's not. It doesn't. That's the thing. That's the reason why I've always had a problem with preseason rankings, and I get it, because at the end of the day, most of these so-called quote-unquote experts are basing all of these preseason rankings off of who came back, who lost what, and who lost who they've acquired through the portal. They put all of this together, and so this is what we got. At the end of the day, and I'm old school for a reason, you pretty much cleared that up off the air, but that's one of the reasons why I'm old school, because as my father always says, your grandfather, you got to get on the field and you got to play. You gotta, everything looks good on paper. Georgia looks if we were going on paper about any of them teams from 1 to 5, because I just can't dismiss Bama. I'm not going to disrespect them like that just because they don't have Nick Saban. Because again, I got to see what Bama looks like on the field without Nick Saban on the sideline. If we're going on paper from 1 through 5 with these teams, Georgia looks unbeatable. Ohio State looks like they're prepared to drop about 45, 50 on you a game, based off their receiving core alone. Texas is Texas until Oklahoma or some other rivalry proves me otherwise. Based on their schedule, we're definitely getting ready to find out what the Longhorns are made of by the time we even get to Thanksgiving. A lot of these teams on paper looks like the real deal. But man, when they get on the field, aside from any cupcakes they might have, when it's time to face one another, because again, Texas is part of the SEC now. There's a lot that's going to be said within the next couple months to whether or not all of these teams that looks good on paper is going to translate to on the field. And I don't want to start hearing people like Feinbaum or anybody else saying, well, look, this is their first year in the SEC, so you got to this and you got to, not trying to hear that. Texas has a very good, Texas has some SEC experience outside of that conference before they joined the conference. Played Bama in the national championship a while back. They played Michigan a couple times. I can go as far back as Vince Young, when Vince Young lit it up against us in the Rose Bowl. They've seen, and that was the Big Ten, but what I'm saying is Texas is LSU came to town. Joe Burrow went out there and broke their hearts. It was a pretty close game up until then, but Joe Burrow started off slow. Once he got his rhythm, couldn't be stopped. There was nothing you could do with him. And last I checked, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, which every time I go back and look at that roster that they had, I understand why they went undefeated and just took it away from Lawrence and them in the Superdome. So
stacked roster.
No, it was
there are guys on that team that
Patrick
are in
Queen,
the NFL right now.
Patrick Queen, I can go
from that team.
I can go every day. Stingley,
a member of your Cowboys.
Stingley, that secondary they had was just
nuts.
They should have charged you to watch them every week that year. They should have charged you a fee to watch them do what they did to people. It was
arguably one of the greatest teams, if not the greatest team of all time.
Went to Tuscaloosa and just dropped 40, 50 on them like it was a Nick Saban defense, and Joe Burrow made it seem like Nick wasn't even on the sideline. So, saying all that to say this, they have SEC experience. Only this time they are actually in the conference, and they have to see people. They just have to. And again, on paper, I see why Texas. If I understand any of the top 5, Texas is understandable. I honestly wouldn't even mess with Texas. I have a couple of Georgia.
The top 4. Cool. The top 4, like I said, I have no problem with.
I have a problem with Oregon at number 3. I just do.
You can switch those top 4 around. You could put any of those teams at 1 through 4. Because at the end of the day, again, this is a preseason. We don't know nothing until week 0.
That's the point I'm just making.
So this is going.
That's what I'm going with.
This is going solely based off of what happened last year. What your logo looks like.
I'll tell you what. If we're gonna go off of what happened last year.
No, we're not. I'm just saying that's what these.
Hypothetically speaking.
That's how.
If we wanted to have fun with this, I know what you mean. I'm not.
That's how they get to the, because you got to remember, this is the AP rankings.
I get that.
It only matters from now
and it's
until
coach's poll. That's why you got 2.
Well, nobody pays attention to the coach's poll.
Well, no, neither do I. But that's the reason why I'm looking at 2 rankings, different rankings.
Pretend that one's not there. Let's stick to the AP.
Well, I'm sticking to the one on the left.
But the point that I'm trying to make is this AP poll only matters from week 0 to maybe I think week 8 or 9 or something around before they do the actual college football playoff rankings. Now, me personally, honestly, I think after week 2 or 3 they should do the college football playoff rankings, because it's going to change for the most part once you get past 5 or 6 now, because it's a 12-team playoff. These rankings are going to be all over the place. You're going to have 2 and 3 lost teams in the top 10.
Since
so
you wasn't too in tune with the BCS, in which that was my golden era.
Well,
one thing I will say I respect about the BCS, even though the overall aspect of the BCS was BS, but if you force me to take anything positive away from the BCS era, it was this. They didn't give you an official anything until week 8. They always waited till week 8 to say, okay, we're 8 weeks in. This is what it looks like from 1 to 25 right now. And I respected that. Outside of that, trust me when I tell you, everything else about it was just straight BS. Just take the C out. Now, this is the problem I have with Bama should be where we should be at. I can't leave my team alone because it's just this list is too disrespected.
Well, we're gonna get to them. We're still in the
shit out of my team.
We're still in the top 5 right now. We
can't spend too much time.
Well, we're gonna move it along. I just wanted to, like I said.
No, but that has everything to do with the top 5.
Right, we're gonna get to that second level. I just want to get past 1 through 5, pretty much.
Okay, but
so we agree.
Is what I'm talking about.
Right, we're gonna get back to that. Let's just get to the second level here before we get too carried away. So basically, we mostly agree on the top 5. With you don't agree with Oregon being at 3. I get it, but again, they got the one thing that Dan Lanning, who was the former defensive coordinator for Georgia, has done with Oregon is he has made them more physical. They've always been fast. They've always been flashy. He has made them more physical, and again, they are going to be probably in that top 10 ranking all year, and they deserve it. Because again, if the way they're going to do these rankings every year is based off of 3 things. Last year, what your logo looks like and who you have on your team on paper. Those are the 3 things that they base it off of. And again, I have no problem with that because Oregon has not shown me anything to dispute the fact that they should be in the top 5.
That's the reason why they have 1 next to their name. One person voted them number 3.
Well, no. What that means is first place votes. So
okay. Well,
so one person voted for them to be first place, which is fine. This has been happening since Nick Saban's run, where most people are gonna pick one team. So you get 62 votes total. Most of those votes are gonna go to the number 1 team. That's just how they do it.
This is all getting ready for the Nick Saban-less annual season, so we can't even put him in there anymore.
But
this is
that's why they're at 5.
Well,
they shouldn't even be in the top 10 if we're going to be quite honest.
No,
but
we need to hurry up then.
Well, we're going to get through. We're done with 1 through 5. We're going to move through 6 through 10 now. Because I don't want to touch on Alabama too much.
Neither do I. You know why?
And they're going to be good this year. They're going to be in the hunt because they still. Again, this is Kalen DeBoer's first year, but people have to understand that this man, wherever he's been at, he's won. Now, again, it's not the SEC. It's Alabama. We get that. But he took a Washington team that was dead in the water 2 years ago, brought them to a national championship game, and again, took all of his talents down. It was a quick process, by the way.
Absolutely.
They must have had a plan before, like right after the championship game, because that happened really quickly.
They went up against a team
that was just better.
That not only was better, but also beat Alabama in the Rose Bowl,
right?
Which is why I'm not understanding why they at 5. That was
if we're
trying hard to drive to that argument, and that
we can't. But see, if we just do it that way, then it would just be based off of last season. If that was the case, it would just be Michigan 1, Washington 2.
Well, most of this is based off of last season.
Yeah, but if you look at 1 through 10, and tell me one thing all these teams have in common. Forget last season. Just look at the teams that are 1 through 10, and you tell me what's the one thing all these teams have in common.
I can't put my finger on it, but maybe you
can.
The
fact is, 1 through 10, these are some of the most winningest oldest teams with the most national championships, with the exception of maybe one or two in college football history.
And
this is what has been done to America.
And you should be able to get that right. Just the first 1 through 10. I get that.
So
but
that's what we're trying to get to here. Is for me, we're gonna get off this 1 through 5 here in a second. But for Alabama, it's same old. For me, it's same old for now. They're gonna win most of their games because they're just gonna be better talent-wise than most of the teams. They're gonna now their schedule is really tough. Yeah. But again, they're going to win most of their games. No matter who the coach is, because of the talent, they still have a top 3 recruiting class, and they'll probably...
Give me a schedule so I can give you a brief win or loss right here, right now.
We'll get to that in a second. But we just don't have a lot of time here to... We do that, we'll start doing it for every team. We'll save that for another podcast. But the point I'm trying to make is Kalen DeBoer is a great coach. We know that. But for probably the next 2 or 3 years of the recruiting cycle is Nick Saban recruited guys. So they're going to be good to great for the next 2 to 3 years. Kalen DeBoer has got time, and he's going to have time based off of that. They're going to have the top 1, 2, 3, 4 recruiting class for the next couple of years anyway.
They've had that for a while.
So and Kalen DeBoer, again, it's not a scrub. They didn't just hire some random, Tommy Tuberville or somebody.
This isn't about.
They hired a guy who has proven success, Division III, Division II, whatever, and even Division I now. So the point I'm trying to make is they're not going anywhere. So their demise has been greatly exaggerated. And there's a lot of people talking about, they're at 5 for the first time since 2009 or whatever. I mean, relax, people. They're still in the top 5. So unless they just start dropping games back to back to back, they're going to be in the running for the college football playoff. As much as I would not like to see them in it. Again, I have to be honest. They're going to be in the run until the end because of who they are, what Nick Saban did when he was there, and the coach they hired wasn't just some offensive coordinator from Kentucky or something. It's a proven guy who just came off a national championship appearance. Now, let's get the 6 through 10 here before we get carried away. And I'm really it's about to get ugly here from here on out because this is nasty work. Ole Miss is 6 is terrible. 7 Notre Dame is fine.
No, that's terrible.
It's fine. 8 Penn State is fine. 9 at Michigan is an egregious error, and Florida State at 10 is a little messed up. So we're gonna get to Michigan here in a second. I'm gonna save them for last. Let's get because we're gonna spend a good amount of time on it. So I want to get the other ones out the way first. Penn State at 8 is fine to me because again, last year the only 2 teams they lost to were Michigan and Ohio State, and we're gonna have to start calling out. I love James Franklin, but we're gonna have to start calling him out on this. I forget his record, but it's really bad against top 10 schools, and he's beaten every now and then. He's gotten Michigan and he's gotten Ohio State, I believe, just once or twice. He's got to start winning these games. You went 10-2 last year, and your only 2 losses were to Ohio State and Michigan. So now a lot of people are using that as a reason to put them at 8 because they believe they're going to be able to run through everybody else with the exception of those 2 teams. But listen, we keep giving this Penn State team the benefit of the doubt, and they keep saying the last couple of years, if it was a 12-team playoff the last 5 years, they would have been in every year. But it's not. We got to stop doing that type of stuff. It didn't happen. They weren't in. They got to start winning because Oregon, USC, UCLA, and Washington are in this division now. You have 4 extra teams, and it's not like the schedules of old. That's something Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Penn State, LSU, all these big teams are going to learn that. It's not the old. You just play your whole division, your side of your division, and then you get a couple other teams.
Cupcakes on your season. Everything is going to be damn near top 25 on your schedule.
You're going to have to come out and really play every week. So Penn State at 8 is, like I said, it's fine. because I don't really have a great argument to say it should be lower. But again, they have to beat Michigan and Ohio State at some point. You can't keep beating everybody else and losing those two teams, because honestly, with this new conference, it's possible you could lose both those games and still make the Big Ten championship. But
they didn't make it last year, which is why I don't see how they're even in front of us. But that's another story for another day, I guess.
Right. So we'll leave Penn State. We'll stipulate Penn State at 8 for now. That's fine. Notre Dame is 7. There's a lot of people who don't agree with that, as I'm seeing.
I'm one of them.
I have no problem with them at 7, just because, again, I need somebody to give me. Now, a lot of people are saying they put them at 7 because they were projecting based on what they think is going to happen this season, based on their schedule. Because a lot of people are saying that
the on paper
it's easy.
That I was talking about, but go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying it's an easy schedule, which.
Well, they get that. They get
I don't
one
think
powerhouse school every year.
But I don't agree with that.
I don't agree that
they have an easy schedule. We can see if we can
It's
pull
not
it up
fairly
here.
easy, but what I'm saying is that they only got what powerhouse team they got last year outside of Clemson.
Well, let's look at this year's
that beat
schedule.
them at home.
Let's look at this year's schedule, because they're going to have
schedule anyway.
They're going to have one of the best defenses in the country.
At Texas A&M, I'm watching it already. The first one could be a problem.
Let's look at what we have here. And the idea that this schedule is easy is ridiculous. You open up at number 20 Texas A&M. Game day will be there.
That's not even a gimme.
No, that is a tough game, no question. Okay. Then you have Northern Illinois at home. Again, you should win that game.
Oh my God, Purdue.
Then you go to Purdue, which is a rivalry game.
Yeah.
So anything could happen. Again, I expect them to win that
game.
Miami, Ohio. Again, a game you should win. But if sometimes when you at Notre Dame and they're at home and these 2:30 games, they get kind of sleepy.
Get up. Well,
and it happens. Then you got Louisville, a team that last year was probably an ACC championship win away from being in the college football playoff discussion, and they lost to Kentucky at the end. So hold on here. So you've got A&M. Louisville's not a bad team at all, just because they're not ranked. People are just overlooking them.
Still should beat them.
I mean,
their number what? Their number.
But that's
7?
the problem.
Number 7.
Notre Dame. Well, that's I don't look at it like that. I don't look at it like because the AP poll has them at 7, they just have to. They just should be. I'm just looking at the teams they have to play.
That's the problem that college football always has.
Which is why on this podcast we will not cater to the media in these polls. We're looking at it from the games that have to be played. And Louisville is not no team that is just going to be easily run over. That defense last year for Louisville was one of the best in the country. They carried them really to the championship, the ACC championship game, and the Florida State defense was just better. Even though they didn't have Travis, they couldn't score. And remember, last year Notre Dame went down to Louisville and lost. And my boy threw about 4 or 5 interceptions in that game. So this is going to be an interesting game here because of what happened last year. And I know coach is going to say, we don't care about last year. That's bullcrap. They beat the brakes off them.
Again.
So, and then, yes, Stanford, they're not anywhere near what they used to be. Again, but that's a rivalry game. And you know what rivalry games do. It doesn't matter your record. They're going to play them tough.
3, 4. They got 5 straight games at home.
Right. But they're independent, so you would expect that. Then you got Georgia Tech.
Problem.
We don't know what Georgia Tech's going to be. But again, a game you should, and that's a neutral site game. So we don't know what's going to happen. Navy, they should win. They're just better. But then the big one. At home, Florida State, prime time. We expect both these teams to still be ranked when that happens. And that's
I picked them to lose that game.
That's going to be one of the biggest games of the year. So you've got A&M and Florida State, 2 top 25 teams as currently constructed.
Okay,
that's already better than
by the time November 9th gets here, you don't even know what number is going to be next.
Right, but
that's number 1.
We're sticking with what we know for now.
Okay.
In the fact that people are saying that this is an easy schedule, I don't think it's an easy schedule because you've got 2 teams that the press has rated top 20 that they have to face. Virginia, again, a game you should win. Army is tricky,
And you got at USC.
And then you end it with a 23rd ranked team. So they've got 3 top 25 teams on their schedule. Will they be ranked when they play them? Doesn't matter because that's how they have it as currently constructed. Army is not a game you can play with. Michigan, Oklahoma found that out a couple of years ago. If you go around and don't bring your best ball, now LSU, of course, dispatched them last year.
Yeah, well,
might have been one of the
not talking about
we shouldn't have done that to America.
Not talking about
the way we pummeled America last year, and I love Army. I always prefer them over Navy, but what we did to them last year should have been a criminal offense. Because I don't think any team is beating them down the way them good old Tigers beat them down. So, for me, like I said, to say this schedule is easy is ridiculous. But, everybody has their opinions. But I just don't believe it's easy. I think it's a really good schedule. And if the teams that are ranked as currently constructed continue to be ranked
compared to some
and
of
to
these
the end of the
that
season,
is not all that compared to some of the other teams out there.
I mean, hey, I understand. We just disagree, but that's fine. Like I said, them at 7 to me is not egregious as people are making it out to.
I didn't say it was egregious.
It's fine. I mean, where should they be ranked? Is my point.
They shouldn't be ranked over Michigan.
And here's another, and this is a hypocritical thing for most people, because if you're going to say that Notre Dame shouldn't be 7, but then guys are going to say, well, their schedule is easy. Well, if they're the better team, then yeah, that 7 ranking is going to bear itself out because they could very well go undefeated.
I'm fine with them being in the top 10, just not at number 7.
I mean, hey, that's fine. We can agree to disagree on that, but I don't think it's as egregious as most people are saying. But so we got past that. We're gonna get to Michigan here in a second. The biggest. I don't want to do this to this team, but actually I do because I don't like them. This might be the biggest oversight in college football history, maybe in sports history. Ole Miss at 6 is ridiculous.
Very ridiculous.
Ole Miss.
I made the point. I made one of my points because of that.
This team, again, I like Lane Kiffin. As much as, they're in the SEC, so I hate them by default. They've been they've been a Penn State-like team the last couple of years. They've won 9 to 10 games. They beat LSU one year. They lose some the next year. They can't beat Alabama. But 6 is ridiculous. You lost Quinshon Judkins to Ohio State. And as much as guys want to try and say they're going to be stacked at running back position, please. Quinshon Judkins is probably one of the top 3, if not the best running backs coming back in America. So you lose him, and they have gotten a lot through the transfer portal, which Lane Kiffin loves to do, which is fine. But to have them preseason ranked at number 6 over a Florida State team who, again, got robbed last year, and over a Michigan team who won the national championship, and we're going to get to them in a second, but their demise has been greatly exaggerated. I don't get it. This is going to be, and Ole Miss fans are going to suffer the wrath of a lot of teams because they have to go down to Death Valley. They have to play Georgia again. And what Georgia did to them last year should have been a criminal offense. They beat the brakes off of them. Much like Penn State can't beat Michigan or Ohio State, Ole Miss can't beat Alabama or Georgia. And sometimes they can't beat LSU, just depending on which LSU team shows up. But if you just look at their schedule, it's brutal, man. It's brutal. And like I said, you start off with Furman in Middle Tennessee. You should win those games, whether they're ranked or not. Then you go to Wake Forest, which is a game that, again, if you go in there not playing your best ball, that's going to be a sneaky great game third week of the season. Yes, they should win, but again, a road game like that is kind of a weird week 3 game where nobody's likely going to be paying attention to it. They'll probably still be ranked at 6 because they'll be 2-0 going into that game, but be careful. Georgia Southern, again, at worst they should be 3-1 to 4-0. You get Kentucky at home, should win that game, and then it gets serial. You go to South Carolina, to LSU. You got Oklahoma coming in, at Arkansas, Georgia, Florida, at Florida, and then Mississippi State for the rivalry game, which who knows.
Yeah,
so
they're not coming out
from October 5th down, you don't have Alabama. So you get to skate by, you don't have Texas.
They won't be in the conference championship.
So
that's for damn sure.
Number 6, again, sometimes I think they do these things to inflate other games, which is fine. But assuming they start off 5-0, that game at South Carolina is going to be a big one. But then they might overlook the fact that they've got to go to Death Valley. So even if they start 6-0, at worst, they would probably be, assuming the top team, somebody slips up, they'll probably be a number 4 team in the country. And assuming my Tigers, which we'll get to, take care of their business, this could easily be a top 10 game. We'll get to that October 12th date because that will be the most important week, on paper at least, the most important week in college football history, almost. Just looking at some of the games on that schedule. And that's also our family reunion weekend. So that weekend is almost like a mini Super Bowl weekend for us because it's going to be a lot going on that weekend. So that's the biggest game. Georgia is, you could say, the best team on their schedule. That LSU game on October 12th is the biggest game on their schedule. I don't care what nobody says. Because by the time they get to Georgia, they will have faced the Tigers. They have to face Oklahoma. They got to go to Arkansas, and then they get Georgia. So, again, that's going to be the biggest. And then I believe they get a bye week after Georgia, and then they go to Florida. Woo! So, hey, that LSU game is going to be the game because I expect my offense to be great, expect their offense to be great. It's really going to be all about the defenses. So we'll see how that pans out. But I don't believe in Ole Miss that much to have them at number 6 to begin the season. I think that's ridiculous. They did this to Arkansas a couple of years ago where they had them ranked number 10. And then they went to Athens and got destroyed. So I don't have a problem with them being maybe 15, 16, 17 to start the year out. But to have them at 6, if the playoffs just started today, they would have a home playoff game to start, which is ridiculous. So they're going to have to prove to me because, again, you can't beat Alabama. They don't have Alabama on their schedule, but they do have Georgia. They do have LSU, 2 teams that have been a thorn in their side the last couple of years. So we'll see what happens with them. Now, to 9 and 10. We're going to get to Michigan here in a second. Florida State.
Said that about 10 times, bro.
I was fired up about Ole Miss. I'm sorry. It's really egregious to me.
That's my team, and so I think
I have not. Well, you already know I have nothing against Michigan, but it's not about Michigan until we get to Michigan.
Yeah,
we're going to get to them.
We went over Notre Dame.
Florida State, well, because those were the quickest ones.
But you jumped.
Now we're getting
to Florida State
because it's going to be the one that takes the longest. We're going to get through the quick ones. Now we're getting to the ones that I'm going to really have a problem with.
You do Florida State because if
Florida State is wait, hold on. Florida State is simple. I don't have a problem with them being at 10. I would just switch Ole Miss with Florida State. They got DJU coming in.
I don't have a problem with that.
Right. So that's what I'm saying.
I can easily swap
put
with
Florida
Bama. State. Although I wouldn't drop Bama that low, but I would
put Florida State at 6, swap Ole Miss to 10. And well, I'll get to the other swap here in a second, but Florida State, you got DJU coming in. He started out at Clemson. He didn't pan out. He went to Oregon State. He started out hot and kind of flailed out at the end. He's a very good quarterback. He just has issues with turning the football over and throwing the football accurately. But if he's gotten better the last 2 years, so they have a proven quarterback, an experienced quarterback, and they're bringing back a good amount of pieces. I expect Florida State and Mike Norvell to be very good this year. And like you said, they have that big game against Notre Dame. They have Clemson. So they have a couple games on their schedule that are going to be interesting.
Well, they have Clemson every year.
Now, we get to the last team on this bracket of teams that we're talking about. Michigan at 9. Before I get into this, I would swap, because if I'm going to swap Florida State at 6, put Ole Miss at 10, I would swap Michigan. I'd put Michigan at 5 and bring Alabama down to 9. That's what I'd do. So I'd have Michigan 5, Florida State 6, and then Alabama 9, Ole Miss 10. I don't understand. I mean, I get it. You lost Jim Harbaugh. You're not sure what you're going to get out of Sharon Moore. But I need people to realize that he coached before the playoffs, the 3 biggest games, the 3 biggest teams on their entire schedule last year: Maryland, Penn State, and Ohio State. And those are the 3 toughest games they had before they got to the playoffs. Were the last 3 games on their schedule. He coached all 3, won all 3. Now, you fast forward to this year. They've got some hard hitters on their schedule, as we've reviewed before. But Paul Feinbaum, which I don't want to keep digging in on him, but he's one of those kind of guys that just kind of goes with the flow. Last year when they won it all, he's a great coach and all this stuff. Now Harbaugh's gone, and they're about to just fall out of the sky. That makes no sense. They still have one of the best running backs in the country, Donovan Edwards. One of the best defensive players in the country, Mason Graham. The best cornerback in the country, Will Johnson. You got Kenneth Grant. You got Colston Loveland, who was an all-pro tight end. Or not all-pro tight end, but a first-team All-American in college now as a tight end. I mean, they're bringing back probably 5 of the best 30 players in college football. So they act like this team can't just restack and get back to it. But if you look at this schedule, again, you're going to beat Fresno State. Texas is the biggest game other than Ohio State and Oregon. Can they win that game at home? Yeah, sure they can. Texas is not like the 0-1 Miami Hurricanes. It's a game they can win at home. You can beat Arkansas State. At worst, you're 2-1. And guess what? You're at home again against USC. Then you're home against Minnesota. They could easily go 5-0. 5 straight home games.
If they do that, we should be number 1 by
Then you go to Washington.
my birthday.
They're not the same team. 6-0. Illinois is defensively, they're very good. So, who knows? But let's just go 7-0. Michigan State's a rivalry game, but that's at home. So at worst, this team is 8-0 before they get to November 2nd, which is against the current number 3 team in the country in Oregon, which will be, again, another, if what I'm saying comes to light and both those teams are undefeated, this will probably be a top 5 matchup. And then you go to Indiana, that's easy win. Northwestern at home, and then you get to Ohio State. So if everything pans out until they get to Ohio State, at worst, this team could be 10-1. Until they get to Ohio State. As currently constructed, they have 4 top 25 teams on their schedule. 3 of them are in the top 5 as currently ranked.
Right.
That is the hardest schedule in college football right now.
Notre Dame's schedule look.
No, it's much harder than Notre Dame, no question about it.
It just look like
you're not going to get no argument from me on that.
That's just ridiculous. 2, 3, and 4, bro.
3,
2,
top
3, and
5
4 on the same schedule. Talk to
nuts.
me about that. Now you can go
That's
ahead
insane.
and talk.
That's insane.
That is remotely insane.
As currently constructed, again.
And Michigan State's not a gimme. That for some
It's
reason,
a rivalry game.
For some reason, they always give us a problem whether they ranked or not.
That's what rivalry games are supposed to do.
It's
but
exactly.
It's a game
that's
where
my point.
For me, it all comes down to the quarterback. The coach is proven. He played the 3 biggest games. He coached the 3 biggest games.
Our running back is proven.
The question is going to be Alex Orji, who is projected to be the starter for this team. What is he? He didn't throw a single pass last year. We saw him in a couple running plays here and there where he was useful, especially against Ohio State. We don't know. I haven't really heard anything good or bad.
So the Fresno State is going to say a lot about what he at least could potentially look like, because number 1 is Fresno State, number 2 is at home. Before we even get to Texas, So
and
that's the
gonna
only
be
thing
key.
we could wait for.
That's going to be key because we know what. But see, here's the thing that's a positive for them is at the end of the day, we know what Michigan wants to do. We know what Sharon Moore wants to do. He wants to build one of the best offensive lines in the country. Then on the defensive side, in the trenches, he wants to get after guys. And Fresno State again, that's a game. I expect this to be a game to where it's like 17-7 at halftime. And then second half they run them over and you know they start off slow, and then they steamroll. And then you get to Texas. If you're Michigan, Texas defense has always been an issue for me. Michigan is a type of team that will have the game tied at 10 at the end of the third, and will then start to impose their will against you. That will not change just because Jim Harbaugh left. Sharon Moore is just as intense, just as fired up, and wants to see his guys bowl over people. They are going to play a physical style that Texas, they're going to the SEC now, but the Big 12 wasn't as physical as they're going to see Michigan.
No, of course not.
They are going to have to hold up against that front. And I'm telling people right now, if y'all think Michigan's going to start throwing the ball over the field, it's not going to happen.
Well, that hasn't really been. I mean, the only time we did that was when we had Denard Robinson and Rich Rodriguez as our coach, because he turned us into spread them out. He had us looking like Toledo almost. Is because that was his style and that's what he wanted. And he's a spread them out offensive coach, and it didn't fit us. Clearly, clearly it proved that the record underneath his tenure, which led us to getting Harbaugh. We had to go back to our bullshit back roots. So at the end of the day, that's what we're known. That's the style we're known for playing. That's our identity. That's what we do. We that's how we beat Bama. Bama was physical with Bama, but then again, you just have to.
It's
not about outscoring Bama. It's about being physical enough to deal with them for 4 quarters. Washington was they changed their mystique slightly because they used to be a spread them out offense, but they realized that after losing to Bama in the playoffs a few years back, that they have to be more of a physical team. Same thing that you brought up about Oregon. Oregon now has when they went from just spread you out, drop 50, 60 on you, but you can also drop about 60, 70 on them. That's not necessarily the case for Oregon anymore. Now, you have to pray that you that you have the firepower to outscore them because they actually have a physical defense. Still slightly small in size, but they have a physical. They have an identity on the defensive side of the ball, which makes Oregon gives them more to fit that team now. There's no more thinking you can just run up and down the field on Oregon's defense. Now, they're physical. And the reason for why these teams are starting to look physical is because of SEC teams and Big Ten teams. They're realizing that, man, we can't just let the offensive linemen just push us around like this. We can't let the D-line just blow past our offensive line. We got to be physical. It's got to be something more than dropping 50, 60 points on people every week. Oregon found that out. They learned from that. Washington learned from that last year, and we learned. It's not about us learning from that. It was about us getting from underneath the head coach that had that type of identity. We just not a spread them out. I mean, Denard Robinson. If we didn't have him, then we wouldn't have beat the teams we beat even when we had him. But we wasn't physical. We didn't push anybody around. And so I go back to the first game of the season a couple years back when we played Bama on a neutral site. We had Denard Robinson. But that's all we had. Couldn't stop anything Bama did. They pushed us around. Now, when we beat them
Rose Bowl last year, it was for two reasons. One, because of the head coach that we had. Two, was because we were physical and we did not allow them to push us around. A lot of these teams are going to understand. Oregon is really going to, Oregon is going to be, after this season's over with, nobody's going to even want to schedule this team because now they have to be physical, like almost every week. Texas is the same. This ain't gonna be the same Texas team that could have been. We could have easily saw Texas in the national championship, but that's because nobody knew who was gonna win that Texas and Washington game until the bitter end. Those people was lighting each other up. The ball was just being chucked up and down the field between Michael Phoenix and Texas quarterback.
Michael Penix.
Michael Penix.
Michael Penix Jr.
I call him Phoenix because, but
he
at the end of the day, Michigan has again, we have enough, like you said, enough to be formidable,
right.
Even against that unbelievable schedule. I mean, please give me a team that's got a forward, that's got at least close to the schedule we have.
And we're gonna get to that because there are some teams who have some. But the point I'm trying to make is take out the three teams that I just named. They should be just strip the rankings away, strip away the logos. They're just better than the other 9 teams on that schedule.
No, absolutely.
The 3 that are on there that are in the top 5 as currently constructed, those are the ones that are going to be the biggest ones. Every other game, they should win. They just should because they're just better. At worst, they could finish 9-3 and still be a top 25 team.
I'm not going to just say they're going to fall apart because they
don't
have Caleb Williams.
We're going to get to USC. I got something to say about them. We'll get to them. But, so yeah, Michigan to me, I would swap them with Alabama, the team that they beat last year, since they are obviously looking at last year and who's coming back. I would just swap those 2 teams and have them at 5. But at the end of the day, if you're
both teams lost their head coaches, no Nick Saban,
right.
No Jim Harbaugh.
But
you doing this just because Milroe's coming back, then I have a problem with that.
So
I have a huge problem with that.
And so with that, at the end of the day, Sharon Moore is going to go in there and say, "Listen, guys, they're disrespected. They disrespected us.
Oh yeah,
we got to come out and prove and show them why we should have started higher. And it's not going to be against Fresno State. We should win that game. Quite honestly, I don't care how they win that game. They just need to win.
I need the Fresno State game to show me what this quarterback is going to look like.
We won't.
That's it.
We won't know. But see, that's my problem. Which is why I say I don't care if they win that game 10-3, as long as they win and because they're going to be looking to Texas. I don't care what anybody says.
No, I know they are.
They're going to be looking ahead and saying, we got one of the biggest games of the year coming up in week 2. Get through, and this is what I think you will, try to preach to them. Get through this game, because we know it's going to be ugly because we have a new quarterback, a new full-time coach now. Let's win this game, and then we get to the game that again, is going to make or break them, honestly, because... or at least how the media is going to perceive it to be. Because if they win this game, you take down a Texas team that a lot of people think is going to be in the SEC championship and get to a national championship. They win that game, they shoot up. They're going to shoot up. They will jump teams that won that week. So that's the first game, and it's kind of like when LSU, when they had Burrow that year, went to Texas week 2. Nobody was really paying attention to LSU to start the season.
No, of course not.
When they went on the road and beat Texas, that was a top 10 game. That 3rd and 17, I remember it like it was yesterday. There was a whole new thing that was brought into the atmosphere when they won that game. That will be Michigan's time. Nobody's giving Michigan the benefit of the doubt. Nobody has them in their playoff predictions or even get into the Big Ten championship game. No one has them in it. That game will be the game to say if they win it, no matter how they win it, because it's going to be an ugly game. That's how Michigan plays. They want it to be ugly. They want to rough you up. It's going to be turnovers. It's going to be all kinds of crazy stuff.
Any less than that.
If they beat Texas,
look out.
2-0, top 10 ranked team. It is gonna. I'm telling you guys, and I'm saying this early, and I reserve the right to change my mind. I think they're gonna beat Ohio State again. They have more talent on paper, but I believe that they will go and beat them again for a 4th straight year. I just do.
We beat CJ. I need people to understand something. That's why I love CJ Stroud. I'm a huge fan of that man. Just not when he was in college. Now that I know what I know now, and what he's getting ready to turn into in the National Football League on Sundays for the Houston Texans, I need people to understand. We beat that man twice. I don't know if it was the third time. I don't know if he was a quarterback.
It was just twice.
It was twice. At home against that same CJ Stroud. Marvin Harrison Jr. was on that squad last I checked. We beat these boys, and we beat them decisively.
If you look
a lot of it wasn't close. Neither one of them was close, to be honest with you. We kind of beat them. Kind of beat them up. Didn't blow them out of the water, but we created a space to where Stroud just couldn't close the gap. Twice in a row.
And the reason,
just saying,
at the end of the day, the reason that they were able to beat this team 3 years in a row is because at the end of the day, when the game got down to crunch time, they physically just overpowered Ohio State. And yes, they've got a lot of fancy new toys. Did they get better in the trenches where they're going to need to beat a team like Oregon, who's more physical than they've ever been, and a Michigan team that is more physical than they've ever been?
Because I don't care how elite your receiving core is. And it is elite, listening to you. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sneezing at none of that.
It should be.
But who's their quarterback for Ohio State right now?
Will Howard.
If Will Howard does not have time to get that football to those elite guys, then they're just going to be a shell of themselves like the past 3 seasons. You got to be physical in the trenches, and you have to give Will time to cook. If you don't have time to cook, then what's the point in having them ingredients out there in your kitchen? That's all I'm saying. And look, listen, the kid has some serious ingredients.
Yeah, he does.
But he needs time to cook those, to make those ingredients turn into a delicious meal.
Right.
If you get back there on Will and you start being physical, that same physical that you're talking about, then listen, it's just going to be another one of those shoulda, woulda, couldas, but didn't.
All right.
That's all I'm saying. So,
and we, like I said, we mostly agree on that one. That was the biggest. To me, Ole Miss, to review this top 10 real quick, that was the big, most egregious mistake they're going to make. And it's not Ole Miss's fault because that's where they put them. But
no, not at all.
It's going to be.
But it's their fault for what they do on the football field. It's their fault that they couldn't beat Bama the past however long.
The demise of Ole Miss will be. It's going to be sad, man.
Because before we beat Ohio State 3 straight years, before them years, do you understand the drought that we went on and we couldn't beat Ohio State? That's pretty much the same position that Ole Miss is in right now with Bama. They are in a drought when it comes to these people. They cannot beat them at home.
Well,
can't beat them in Tuscaloosa.
They can't.
They just can't do it.
So
when they get over that hump,
they also, years ago, admittedly it was years ago, but they've also done something that really you can't name the last team that's done it in beating Alabama 2 years in a row.
Houston Nutt was their coach the last time they beat Bama. I remember it well. Houston Nutt was their head coach last time they beat Bama, and they beat them at home. Okay?
Was it?
Yes, it was. I remember it well because DK Metcalf was their top receiver. Check again. Check your stats. I know this very well.
It's neither here nor there. But the point is, they beat them 2 years in a row, and
I'm just saying that's the last time they beat Bama.
That was back when Dak Prescott was there.
Yeah, so Houston Nutt was. I'm talking about the head coach of Ole Miss.
Yeah.
He was. That was the last time that I remember them beating Alabama. Now, if they beat them another time around that era, then I missed.
That's what I'm saying.
But I remember who their coach was.
They beat them 2 years in a row. They beat them at home. That was the year when Dak Prescott and Mississippi State was number 1 at one point. They beat Alabama that year, and they ended up still making the playoff because Mississippi State lost. Ole Miss ended up losing games. And then the next year they went to Alabama and went nuts. and had all types of trick plays and crazy things happen. That was back when Chad Kelly was their quarterback.
I remember that.
So, but anyway, that'll be. It's going to be sad to see how they fall, and I don't wish them to fall. I do because they're in the SEC. But
Listen,
I think starting at 6 is.
I don't have nothing against Ole Miss.
Ridiculous.
I just have a lot against where they're at right now in this so-called quote unquote preseason rankings. The team itself, no, I root for them to beat Bama almost every year, and that's only because I don't like Bama. I don't have with the talent that they've gone through over the years of having. They're always equipped to beat Bama. They just can't put it on the field. They've always been on paper ready to beat Bama. On paper. On field, can't close the deal. That's my only issue with them. Other than that, I have no problems with Ole Miss. But to put them where they're at right now is a travesty.
All right. Well, the next bracket is 11th, and this is where we're going to kind of speed it up because we are flying past this time here on this first episode of this podcast. We just literally for the last hour we've discussed the top 10 teams. I didn't expect that.
We really only should.
From here on,
the next episode should be 10 to 25.
From here on, like I said, this is where it gets choppy because, again, there's going to be 2 spots left after the top 10.
And I'm going to tell you something. Underneath 10, I'm just going to briefly say this. I ain't spending time on none of this right now. I'm just going to briefly, my personal briefing, swiftly through just a few things that I'm looking at right now. That's all. Want to spend more time on it? That's up to you. LSU, to put them underneath Missouri and Utah, I don't get it, but that's fine. LSU, Clemson, Tennessee, and Oklahoma. Literally, those 4 teams, watch out throughout the season. That's all. Don't play with them, especially Tennessee. Don't play with Tennessee because, if I'm not mistaken, they got a lot of their players back. Quite a few of them came back. Oklahoma is never a team to sneeze at. Just ask Texas. I remember, Texas, and that ain't that far back. Texas had them by like 20, 30 something points, and then after halftime, I don't know what the hell happened. They turned
Caleb Williams happened.
And it just turned into they made Texas look like they didn't do nothing in the first half. I remember that game. I know you do. I watched it. Miami, for some reason, is just the biggest question mark. One of the biggest question marks in college football because they could get on the field and play with the best of them. They just can't close the deal because, again, it goes back to being physical, number one, and their defense is very suspect every season. Last year, they'll take the ball away from you, but just as quick as they took it away from you, they get scores dropped on them back to back in possessions. I've seen it. They're not consistent. They're one of the most inconsistent schools in the top 25. Outside of Texas A&M, which is gonna they jump not too far up, but if they beat Notre Dame, they can definitely, that'll be a confidence booster for them. That'll bring them up somewhere, maybe 17, 16, all depends on what these other schools do. But I'm telling you right now, and Utah, look, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, they're above LSU. They shouldn't be. You can easily swap them with 12 and 13. But Utah, don't really play with them neither. I'm going to be honest with you. Utah, LSU, Clemson, Tennessee, and Oklahoma just do not, the minute you sneeze, I'm telling you right now, they're going to be right there to wipe your nose. I promise you this. Especially LSU, because again, they're built to have they're built to, just like nobody saw Joe Burrow and them coming when they played Texas in week 2. This is starting to look like the same kind of deal. Nobody's really, clearly by this ranking, nobody's really giving them too much attention, but that's fine because, again, preseason rankings. These people are loading up on defense. And I'm telling you right now, they could be a problem. They could be a serious problem. Clemson is always a problem. It's just they've lost so many people over the past couple seasons to the NFL that they haven't. This will be the year that have they finally rebuilt to where they can be formidable again. I don't know. I have to see it. Tennessee is really. I've seen this school the past 2 seasons, and I'm telling you right now, that's another team that has a problem against Bama. For some reason, they come up short against Bama a lot. They can't beat Bama. Florida, I know they can beat. Kentucky, I know they can beat. And that's their 2 rivalries. That's their 2 big-time rivalries. Oklahoma's a shell of himself. Kansas State has been a surprise for the past couple seasons. But again, this is a Kansas State team where a lot of people are coming back. Kansas, Arizona, I'm fine where they're at. I'm definitely fine where USC is at because that just goes to show you how good Caleb Williams was. Even though you lose to Tulane on a neutral site. So you're kind of supposed to be either there or damn near 25. They lost a few games last year that Caleb wasn't focused on winning. When he had the talent to really take USC a lot further than what he did last season. But man, Tulane was dropping bombs on them left and right on their defense. I watched that game, and I'm watching, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And it was mostly really I couldn't believe what I was seeing from Tulane. I guess it was because I didn't watch them as consistent enough last season. But when it got to where in that Cotton Bowl, man, we got a chance to. They definitely introduced themselves to the college football world when they handed them their ass. NC State and Iowa, I'm fine with that because at the end of the day, let's just say I'm glad that we don't have to see Iowa. It's strange that we don't have to see Iowa on our schedule because we play Iowa every year. It's another Big Ten rivalry, and when you popped up Michigan's schedule, I didn't see Iowa. So that kind of jumped at me. I just didn't say nothing about it. Because I don't give a shit. Ranking or not ranking. Iowa can upset you. Trust me, we know this. You know this because if I'm not mistaken, they beat LSU not too long ago. In a neutral site. Bowl game. Just throwing that out to say that they are capable of, again, and they're physical too. These people, Iowa, you see the Big Ten breeds. Certain conferences breed certain players. The SEC breeds physical and speed players. Speed. The Big Ten and the Big Ten is known for breeding some of the biggest offensive linemen on the planet. Just ask Wisconsin, ask us, as Michigan. Ask they just I don't know what it is, but if you go back and check any of these offensive linemen in the National Football League over the years, most of them is coming out of the Big Ten Conference, especially Iowa. Iowa just I don't know what they're doing out there. I don't know if they have a I don't know if they have a farm where they just breed these dudes. Anything that has to do with protecting the quarterback is coming out of Iowa, Wisconsin, Indiana. A lot of these Big Ten schools are breeding offensive linemen, which is another reason why McCarty had the time that he had to put your lights out. Because we just go back and look at it. We had horses on the offensive line. We just did. McCartney wasn't in too much trouble like talking about it. He was in a little trouble against Alabama, but that's Bama. That's who they are. Like you said, they're Bama. But yeah, from 12 to 25, I'm telling you right now, we'll say this one more time and then I'm done. Pass it over to you. Utah, LSU, Clemson, Tennessee, Oklahoma. Do not think for a second that these people, just don't do it. Just don't do it because if you have any of them teams on your schedule, the minute you sneeze, they will be there to wipe your nose for 4 quarters of football. I promise you that. And I don't even like Oklahoma. Can't stand them. Don't like them. But I'm not basing none of this off of teams I like and don't like. This is X's and O's. We talking football. Talking nothing but sports. Don't sneeze on the first 5 teams that I'm looking at right now. Please don't do it. As far as Texas A&M, like I said, I put them with one of those. I put them right there with the 5, and say 6, but I can't do it because they let me down every year. And they got to show me something, and that'll be week 1 against Notre Dame. When I see if they can beat Notre Dame, and I don't care if it's 10-3, shit, it could be 6-3. If they beat Notre Dame, if the 12th man shows up, which they will, because it's the first game of the season, that place is going to be 80, 90 something thousand plus. 12th man will be in the building. It will be the noisiest. It still is. Notre Dame is going to have problems hearing anything in that stadium. If they come away with the win, then and only then they will have my respect moving forward for me to at least say, okay, they got something. But other than that, first 5 up there on that list from 12 to 16, just don't play with them. That's all I'm saying. Back to you.
Okay. I'm going to disagree with a lot of that diatribe you just let out.
You can.
And it's basic, like I said, 11 through 25. I don't have a problem with Missouri. I think Missouri is going to be very good this year. I did not see them coming last year. They were very good. They beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl game. Again, they were very good last year. They challenged Georgia on the road. That was a very good game. Georgia was just a little better. They did lose to LSU last year, early in the season, even with that terrible defense.
Well, there's a couple teams in the SEC that they can't beat.
And they lost their defensive coordinator to a team that I'm about to get to. But I expect them to be very good. Brady Cook, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Luther Burden III is likely going to be the top receiver drafted, if not top 2. He's one of the best receivers in the country. I expect this team to be very good again. Again, their schedule is light compared to other teams that we've discussed. But like I said, I expect them to be very good this year. So they're getting high marks at 11. But if they get through the schedule, they'll be right there at the end. So I don't have any problem with them at 11. Utah at 12, no problem there. If Cam Rising's healthy, he's a Heisman contender. That's been their problem the last couple of years. Rising's been in and out the lineup, and he just hasn't been able to play a full season. If he plays a full season, I expect him to win the Big 12 running away. Even though we'll get to the Big 12 in the next episode, it's going to be a wild conference. I expect that to be the best conference in the league, because you could put a blindfold on and just pick one of these teams, because every team, any of those teams in that conference could win the Big 12. So no problem with Utah. Their defense is going to be physical as usual. So I expect them. Like I said, if Cam Rising is healthy, I expect them to go far. My Tigers at 13, I don't have any problem with it. I usually would be outraged, but at the end of the day, my defense was so bad.
I simply say you can easily switch just them in Utah. I didn't say Utah didn't deserve to, I don't have a problem with Utah and Missouri. I just going them two to be above LSU.
Right.
You could easily switch. If you want to switch, I only simply say you could switch. You could put Utah at 13, LSU at 12. That's all I said.
Right.
That's all I said.
Yeah,
but I'm making sure we're clear what I'm saying. I don't want you to. I'm not sitting up here saying they're not going to be good. Utah ain't. I told you they ain't nothing to sneeze at.
It could be bad.
And I told you
this is the start.
I told you the first 5. Don't sneeze at them. Clearly, Utah is right there. I said from 12 to 16, don't play with them. Utah is 12. So
right.
You're not really disagreeing too much.
Not yet. We ain't get there yet.
Okay.
Like I said, this is all dependent on Cam Rising's health. That's going to determine whether they win the Big 12 or not. In a lot of people's minds, including mine. Like I said, LSU, they bring over Blake Baker, the defensive coordinator, who was the defensive coordinator at Mizzou last year, who has had Missouri's defense. They were lockstep. Like I said, they went to Georgia last year and gave them all they wanted. That defense was very good. They stopped Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. I believe that this defense that he's going to bring over, we got some pretty much most of the same guys, which is worrisome. But I'm hoping that he can instill his way of doing things and get back to the old ways of physicality and cornerback play that the LSU's used to. Because last year I couldn't believe my eyes. I could not believe that defense was that bad. We were the worst defense in college football.
Which is why I said what I said.
So
I don't expect them to be any worse this year. I just don't.
Hopefully this defensive coordinator will. He's proven. So again, we will see what this defense looks like. They've got to do. I'm hoping he can do something with Harold Perkins Jr., who is
pull up LSU's schedule.
Well,
We
when they have
see
time,
it.
Yes, we do. I saw you clicking on all these teams and doing a schedule. Yes, you can.
Oh, we only have 10 minutes left of this episode.
Okay, it's not gonna take long.
Jesus Christ.
It's your brother.
But anyway, we'll get to that in another date. But LSU for me, again, their defense is was horrid, and he's got to find something to do with Harold Perkins Jr., whose last year was very disappointing.
Right.
I expected great things from him after his freshman season, where he looked like he was almost unstoppable. This will probably be his last year, as he'll probably be trying to go to the draft. So hopefully that means we will see Blake Baker can use him in a way to where he's all over the field. He can line up at the defensive end position, at the linebacker position, and he can cover as well. So depending on what they do with him this season is what's going to happen, is how good this defense is going to be. Because to be quite honest with you, if the offense is as good as they were last year, the defense doesn't even have to be great. It just has to be marginally better than it was last year. And this team, we're going to score with anybody.
It just has to be competitive.
But I'm fine with where they are because, like you said, we got USC to start the year off, so we'll see. Because USC has no defense either, so we'll find out. Clemson at 14, again, they have earned the respect. Dabo Swinney, he's not a transfer portal guy. He doesn't do it. And yet he was able to win a couple national championships, and the only team to destroy Alabama in a national championship game. People seem to forget that. He's proven, so I never doubt Clemson. They've been down the last couple of years, but their defense has always been top notch. The question is, at quarterback, do they have the next guy, Cade Klubnik? We'll find out. But I liked him at 14. They opened the season week 1 against Georgia and Atlanta. So we're going to find out very quickly if he's matured enough. But I expect their defense to be top-notch. The question is, can they put points on the board? So I don't have a problem with them at 14. Really quickly, Tennessee and Oklahoma, where they're at, I really don't think they're going to be that good this year. Tennessee, I don't get it. Their quarterback, Nico, I don't even want to try to pronounce his last name. I haven't seen him play yet, so I don't know what to expect. They do have one of the best defensive players in the country, James Pierce, who a lot of analysts have him probably going number 1 in the draft. But their defense was not good when they had Hendon Hooker. They weren't that good last year. And I just don't see it in Tennessee. Oklahoma, I really don't see. I think they're going to have a better year than a lot of people think. But I just don't see them in the SEC in their first year doing well enough. So I think those two teams, other than Ole Miss, are going to be the two teams that drop out of the top 25 by the time we get halfway through the season. Because I just think their schedules, Oklahoma's got LSU and Alabama on their schedule, and Ole Miss. Tennessee's got all those teams as well. So I don't think they'll pan out. Oklahoma State, Kansas State, both teams in the Big 12, I think, will be battling out for that Big 12 championship game in the end. Like I said, the Big 12 is stacked. They've already got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams in the pack from 12 to 25. 5 of the 13 teams are in the Big 12. I'm telling you, the Big 12 is going to be like the Pac-12 was last year. It is going to be fun to watch every game, every week, to see who's going to be on top. But I expect both those teams to really do what they always do. Oklahoma State and Kansas State. They're always right there. And now with this new 12-team playoff, I expect them to continue to be in the hunt. Miami at 19 is interesting. There's a lot of hype. A lot of analysts have Miami in the playoff. I'm not quite ready to go there yet because, as we've seen with Miami, they start off hot and then they lose a game. That Georgia Tech game they lost last year I couldn't believe it. They didn't call a timeout, which I don't understand why they ran the ball when all they had to do was take a knee, and then they end up losing on a Hail Mary. So that was a weird game that really put them out of it. And Mario Cristobal is a better coach than that. I don't know what he was thinking. Cam Ward from Washington State has come in. They got my guy from Kentucky as a running back. They got Restrepo, who's a great receiver. So they've got some good pieces. And their defense I expect to be top-notch as well. But I'm just not sure about them yet. We'll find out because they've got Florida first week. So we'll find out how good this team is. A&M at 20, I'm tired of A&M at this point. I'm tired of them being ranked in the top 25 every year. They never produce. They never get it done. They haven't had a double-digit winning season in the last couple of years. They have the number 1 recruiting class here, number 2 there, number 3 there, and they never produce. So I'm just tired of talking about it. I don't even want to talk about A&M. They're going to be unranked. I think Notre Dame will go in there and beat them. We have 2 weeks for me to finalize that, but I have no faith in A&M whatsoever. And I'm really tired of them being put in the top 25 to begin the season every year when they've produced nothing. Arizona at 21. A lot of people have faith in Arizona this year. They have one of the best quarterback receiver combos in the country, so I expect them to be very good. But again, the Big 12 is going to be a gauntlet. You could beat a top team one week, and next week you're struggling against Cincinnati. So we will see. Same thing with Kansas in the Big 12 as well. We're going to talk about the Big 12 in depth at a later date, but this is going to be one of those conferences, man, where every week you're going to see a weird score against a bad team, and then the next week they'll play their best football against one of the better teams in the Big 12. So it's hard for anybody to decipher the Big 12 right now because we just don't know. NC State is fine at 24. I'll save that for another podcast, but I'm very high on NC State this year. Iowa. I expect them to win most of their games because their defense, one of the best defenses in the country. Their offense has always been their issue. We'll see what happens with their offense this year, but I expect them to win most of their games simply because of their defense. But that's probably as far as they'll go. They'll make a good bowl game. They will not make the playoff because their offense is not good enough. And finally, USC. Much like A&M, I don't understand why they're ranked. Well, I know why they're ranked because of the LSU game at the beginning of the year. You got to have those two teams ranked when they play Sunday night. I get it, but their defense is awful, and it'll continue to be awful because Lincoln Riley teams don't play defense. It's just what it is. They're going to score, but they're not going to stop you, which is why that game will be the most important game of Week 1, in my opinion, Sunday night between LSU and USC. If we're going to find out which defense stepped up this year coming up. So really that's it for our top 25 discussion. We're going to find out how good these teams are coming up, starting week 0. When we have number 10 Florida State taking on Georgia Tech in Dublin, Ireland. And we're going to see what happens this season. But that is our first episode of this new podcast. We basically broke down most of the teams here in the top 25 and what we expect. The next podcast, we will get into discussing our conference championship predictions. We will discuss all 10 of them and find out who we have in the conference championship games.
and then we will, if we have time, we will go into the breaking down our college football playoff predictions and Heisman predictions as well. But that's it for now. Make sure to like, comment, and keep listening to us as we continue to try to grow and get better